And welcome everybody to that 401k virtual bunch. It's Ari Rosenbaum here. We took a couple months off. January, we had that 401k National Virtual Conference. February, I had to take care of some, health issues, fix my nose and all that other stuff. And I saw every other doctor that I needed to see, and everything's fine. But we're back. But first, we'll talk about the next couple of virtual events. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk to Jeff Todd, who's an advisor with Q3 Asset Management. Good guy, great friend, great supporter. Then on April the 9th, we're going to have that 401k virtual conference number 10. And then on May the 10th, we're going to do a virtual bunch with Congressman Jamie Raskin from Maryland. He was supposed to be at a national virtual conference in January, but there was this little thing called impeachment going on, and he was one of the House impeachment managers. So needless to say, he had more important things to do than, our little virtual event. But I wanted to introduce, everybody knows from all the events and podcasts and everything else we've done, Dan Venturi. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
What corporate name are you using this week? Because
you could use either 401k Reboot or Brightworks. They're both.
I like them both.
Legitimate platforms.
How long have we known each other already? Because
we go back
11 or 12.
2012. It was right after that famous DOL letter basically killed that iteration of the map.
Yes,
you wrote an opinion letter for us that helped to eventually launch the Reboot platform.
Yeah, the tag opinion, which cost us a lot of money. Well, it cost me a lot of money. Cost everybody who was in the MEP business a lot of money.
Yeah, well, and you know what? Thankfully, it's come back in a different iteration. So hopefully, we'll see a little bit of a pickup there. I mean, the jury's still out on where the PEPs are going to land, but we'll see.
So, how did you start? Because when we met, you were a consultant and you weren't in the 316 administration business. So, how'd you start? Because your start is a little bit different than everybody else's. My joke is, why'd you do ERISA? Well, it's the first job I got.
Sure.
People in 316 administration usually are people that were in the administration business who just decided, I think that this is a good spot to be in. How'd you arrive at 316 administration? It's kind of interesting.
It was sort of a long road. I think like most of us, with maybe you being the exception, we don't end up starting out in the 401k world. We kind of end up landing there. So my consulting background goes back to the HRH Willis days, and we did a lot of transactional diligence. And sort of as a result of that, we got real comfortable with the idea of risk and the operational liability associated with these plans. That sort of spun itself into running maps, or the idea of running maps, which, as we discussed a second ago, kind of was altered. We were able to get some MEPs satisfied that sort of or established that satisfied that nexus requirement. That was such a big deal through the private equity space. And that's kind of how we landed in it, right? So from running those maps for private equity firms, it spun out into a 316 platform that we were able to put a lot of the transactional based clients from my time at Willis on, and that was kind of it. I mean, that's really what started the whole thing.
But then at a certain point, you decided, this 316 stuff seems really lucrative, and let me leave Willis and start my own thing. I mean, how did you decide to do that? There's a lot of people in time. I just talked to somebody who's a very good marketing expert who lost his position, and I said, why don't you start your own business? You're great at marketing. You were an inspiration to me. Why don't you go? And not everybody can do that. Why did you decide that you could do this on your own and support your kids and your 50 million dogs and all that?
We do have a lot of dogs, and we actually have more dogs than kids, and we have a lot of those. So, but whenever I talk to you, I always think back to some of the past articles you wrote, and one of my favorite was the Star Trek Wrath of Khan piece. I think that was the one where Kirk mentioned the test. So I kind of cheated, I guess is a long way of saying it. Um, not in a bad way, but I was sort of able to have the security of a day job, so to speak, while simultaneously building the 316
Test is the Kobayashi Maru.
bingo, exactly. So not nearly as dramatic, but I did think that it helped, right? It gave me enough runway to be certain when it was time to leave that it was a supportable sort of enterprise, no pun intended, and that it would support the kids, so to speak, and I think that was really what was different, that comfort level, um, and just knowing that like I said, the runway was there. By the time I left, we had say 40-45 clients on the platform, so it was more just a matter of critical mass. I just couldn't juggle the two any longer. So
Was there a large learning curve? Because again, you're a consultant and then going into 360 administration, you're kind of going in, as you say, always getting into the weeds.
Yeah. So look, it like most things, it was an evolution, right? What we started with originally is pretty far from where we ended up, from where we are today. The consulting background, right? So advisors, consultants, their traditional role is to focus on the investment side. I think what was sort of unique about my background, and sort of what afforded me the ability to do this going forward, was the focus on transactional diligence or diligence reviews, right? So a private equity firm is looking to buy company A. They go through a litany of different things they want to get done. One of them inevitably is benefits, and within that scope is retirement plans. So just reviewing so many plans, 200-300 plans a year, you get real comfortable with the operational compliance, right? You talk to enough ERISA attorneys, you read enough of, you correct enough operational issues, you reference advocates enough times, and you get comfortable with that part of it, right? Now the nuance, I think, comes in dealing with the individual record keepers, right? And that's sort of more of a learning curve. So that part of it we're still learning, right? And how we sort of get our process to reconcile with the record keepers, is something that's still sort of evolving.
One of the problems that I think in 360 administration that I always point out, and I think you would certainly point out, is that there is no definition of what it is.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
For example, everybody, I kind of allude to it, but I have to talk to you about it. I have a range war with a certain third-party administration firm. Well, I think the range war is over as far as I'm concerned, but let's just say they got into trouble with a plan that I work on, and they offended the advisor because they were offering a free 316 service to all their clients, and then they of course sent it to the adopting employers, and that kind of upset the person running the MEP. And the joke is it's a free service until you want to pay for it. And I heard some clients were on it, and for free it wasn't worth it. And the problem with 360 administration, it could be something as simple as signing 5,500 and nothing else, or it could be something quite extravagant, really working on a day-to-day and kind of dealing with the problems that happen in the day-to-day administration of retirement plan. So how is your service different than somebody just signing the 5,500 and looking at evaluation and
Sure.
maybe doing
Sure.
the testing on their own, and maybe they're not? And
well, the two things that I've always spoken to, especially when we were doing the conferences and the world was a little different, the two big ones are payroll, right? Being liable for the payroll, having a process to review the payroll. That's where the gremlins are, right? That's where things go wrong generally. I don't know how many times we've spoken about definition of comps, being a huge issue.
well, it always seems to be of recent vintage. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, yeah, I'd have an issue, but not that bad. But yeah, it's surprising how often it really comes up.
Yeah. So that's the first thing, right? And I think the second thing is, and record keepers do a good job of sort of straddling the line. They'll tell you they're not fiduciaries, but a lot of their actions, I think fall under that category. So inevitably their call centers, I think, are a huge cause of participant potential misinformation, right? So one of the things that I mentioned earlier was the process is evolving. One of the things we found that was really helpful and of real value to the plan sponsor was we have a call center, right? So we direct all the record keepers to send the participants to us. So there's a single point of contact. You're speaking to the plan administrator. You're speaking to the folks that are going to sign off on whatever is needed, and that limits the misinformation. So I think those are the two big things. I think ultimately where you're going to land if you're considering looking for a 316 is you have to look at the contract, right? I mean, you wrote our contract, so you know what it looks like. But that's the big thing, right? What are folks going to accept? What kind of liability will they accept in writing? And that's how you separate, right? Like
Well,
if
I also think the services, again, any schmuck can sign a 5500. I mean, what's the
yeah,
big deal about that? And there are 316s that won't sign it, which I find funny. To me, that's the the one thing you can do. I mean, the one simple thing you can do, and they don't want to do it. But a lot of them won't do notices. Sending
yeah,
out notices, and I know that prior to the e-disclosure thing, mail was a big thing for you. I think it's
yeah.
probably going to be less so. Uh,
It, yeah, it will be to your point going forward, but it's a kicking and screaming thing, and to a degree, mailings are belt and suspenders as well, right? I get the whole let's save the planets, let's save the trees, and by all means, um, but from someone who focuses on liability, belt and suspenders aren't a bad thing. But yeah, look, where I always said that what makes us different is we're full scope in the truest sense of the word. Um, it's not, to your point, just signing a 5500. It's not just getting out a notice. It's a little bit of all of it. And you know 401k plans are living breathing things, right? There's probably more data points in a 401k plan than any other employee benefit. And that's where the liability is, right? That's where the corrections are required, and that's where the mistakes are made.
But you also do some TPA work as well. I mean, yeah.
We
So
do.
I know you do the 5500s
We
because
do.
I've asked you for help on those when I need
We
like a
do.
5500. We have a potential client that,
Yep.
one of the 403B providers. I think I mentioned with Mike on LinkedIn. Didn't bother to tell a client, hey, by the way, your ERISA 403B in around 2003. Your that whole employer contribution thing. I mean, which is the one thing will make you ERISA 403B. Approving loans, you can weigh that. But yeah, when you make an employer contribution, you're at ERISA 403B. And this large provider, who I jokingly say is the only reason they keep 403B plans to keep this provider in business.
Mm.
They don't do any help for the client. So, but yeah, so you do TPA work.
We do. We do. It was sort of again, going back to what I said earlier, something that we've evolved into. Initially, the services were exclusively 316, but we came to realize that the marketplace sort of wants that bundled approach, right? I think we as an industry, as limited as the 316 field is, probably hasn't done the best job of educating or communicating the services and the advantage to the advisor community, to the HR community of the world. And I think that message is a little bit more compact when it's bundled with the TPA services. We're going to be liable for all that stuff anyway. So, if we're buying the groceries, we might as well cook.
Yeah, that's the line I always use with the Bill Parcels line, which
Exactly.
is one of the reasons I used to quit my role as a synagogue vice president once. They were going to bring on somebody else as a vice president. He was a former president, was terrible. And somebody was saying, you should be deciding who else we can nominate. I said, you know what, if I'm going to cook the food, at least I should have a say in how the groceries are bought. So yeah, every single time I see Parcels, I'm always reminded that I've used that line of his so many times. What are some of the horror stories of planes that you've taken over that all of a sudden you're at the 316 and you discover, hey, you got a problem over here. Not that you caused, but that you took over.
Sure. So I've
Because
taken
if you didn't
over.
cause problems, you'd write a check.
Yeah, well, exactly. We've taken over, a couple of plans that are in the middle of an audit, right? DOL audit. So that's always fun. It takes you a little bit of time to get up to speed. We had one this past audit season. So the audit was late. 5,500 was in on time. We ran the whole audit to follow a play there. And it was a new audit firm, and the auditor is interviewing the plan sponsor, right? And within the middle of the call, the plan sponsor, not the HR person, but the payroll person, reminds everyone that they haven't been contributing on bonus, right? Which,
Right.
as we mentioned before, right,
Yeah.
is a definition of comp issue. So it was like the confession to the priest. Like, it was, the timing was just comical to me. And I remember texting the HR guy, like, this is not helping, right? Like, we were on a deadline. We had gotten a 45-day letter, and we're up against it, and this payroll person is basically complicating everyone's existence. Luckily, it wasn't material enough, so the auditor was able to issue the financials, and we were good. And we're in the process now of filing for VCP and hopefully getting everything squared away there. But that's a recent one that comes to mind. There are always little things. We've cleaned up a bunch of 5,500s in the past. There's I guess it depends on the time of year, the kind of mistakes you get. But those are some of the ones that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite bonus story was I was at Meyer Swazi, and it was one of our clients. We didn't handle the 401k plan, but they recommended they talk to me. And 20 years, it was a publicly traded company. 20 years, publicly traded bank. 20 years. I was ready to say the accounting firm. Thank God I didn't. But let's just say it's one of the big four. I think there are four left. Listen, I used to interview in the days when there was an Arthur Anderson and whatever. But yeah, the big four. And for 20 some odd years, they did not catch that bonuses were part of the definition of compensation. So they were shortchanging these people's on the employer contribution, and obviously the opportunity to defer. And they said to me, "How are we going to fix it?" I said, "We got to go VCP." And they were shopping ERISA attorneys, and they actually found an ERISA attorney who said that you could self-correct it. And I played by the book. I mean, 20 years, every participant. That's something that the IRS.
Yeah, that'd be a little.
I don't like to self-fix that.
Yeah, that seems to be a big one.
Yeah,
it seems to be a big one.
So we used to see each other every week.
We did.
We used to go to our favorite cheesecake factory in Melville. And we've done that once since the pandemic. So for everybody, Mike Webb would know, because Mike Webb was in Orlando. Today marks a year from the last day of that 401k National Conference. I just saw my Facebook thing, Goose Gossage, a picture of me and Goose Gossage, and a picture of me and Goose Gossage and Larry. It used to be fun going to the Cheesecake Factory, but now, hopefully we'll get some shots and then we could go out again. It's kind of weird dealing with that, which, one of the big things was, it was going to be my segue into, aside from Atlanta, you've been to every that 401k conference?
Yeah, I dialed into Atlanta, right? So
Yeah,
Atlanta landed on my son's 5th birthday.
That's right.
So
You called in, but out of all your events, what are some of your favorite memories of the live events?
I was thinking about this the other day. Wrigley Field was really cool, right? I thought that was great. We got a ton of really good stories from Wrigley. A lot of so I was a history major, right? So any kind of anecdote that has an origin story, right? Like it came from left field, or the batter's eye, right? Both those things came out of Wrigley. Thought that was great, right? Taking a picture at the Ivy was great, even though you weren't supposed to touch it.
I touched
And then then although
I go to Wrigley Jail, whatever, but I touched it.
although I was sick as a dog, the Cowboy Stadium was pretty cool because we've never been on the field, right? At like we have, but I mean like we had pretty much unlimited access, right? Yeah, we
because in the baseball stadiums they don't allow you to walk on the grass usually, so usually we'd walk around and we can't touch
exactly.
So
No,
here's the official service.
I mean, I lined up at the 5 and I got it into the end zone. Like that was my big takeaway. Sick as I was able to get one in.
It's always funny to talk to people about all the events because I was just talking to Teresa Conte, who was who's at LA and Colorado, and she was talking how much she enjoyed LA. But in terms of your least favorite conference, there's only one that comes to mind.
Which one? Which one? Shay?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa? Yeah. Well, Tampa, like Wade Boggs was awesome, right? I mean, I'm sure.
Awesome, but Wade Boggs was the only good thing about that.
I'm sure you've told the story, but one of Ari's future claims to fame is he made Wade Boggs cry
twice.
2 days in a row. On 2 different days, right? Every time the guy got up to talk, Ari teared him up. But yeah, look, it's sort of an ugly ballpark, and they were renovating, and it wasn't. I got a good hat from the gift shop though.
That's always the thing that we do. We would go to the events, and I would always have to stop at the gift shop. It's like Seinfeld. I got to stop at the duty free shop.
Yep.
So there was
everyone we stopped at, except for maybe Dodger Stadium.
I think it wasn't open, but I did hit them on the way there at Universal Studios. They have a Dodger shop. But one of my favorite stories about Kansas City is, if you recall, Arrowhead is right across the way from Kauffman Stadium. So we actually hit the Chiefs. We hit the Chiefs and the Royals.
We also had that amazing barbecue, which wasn't in Missouri, it was in Kansas, right? We crossed the border.
Kansas, for those scoring at home. Joe's Barbecue, which was at like a gas station.
Yeah, look, you can get great food and a tank of gas in the same place.
And that was the same day that we had the chicken and bagels right before the game.
We did. And we went to the Negro League Hall of Fame and saw Geddy Lee's baseball collection, which was awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, we'll be doing the live events eventually. It's just more of, I think people were talking about shots. I'm getting my shot, the first one, at the end of March. So hopefully I'll be all like together by May. I think what we're going to do is we have 3 events that we had booked. That was going to be in order: Houston, St. Louis, Minneapolis. And I know that St. Louis looks like it's going to be September 10th. We're probably going to do 2 events, either 2 events in August or 1 event in August. We're just going to make up those 3 pretty quickly, and then do Las Vegas in December. I just think that it's reasonable now that, I think life is coming back to normal. I was on the phone with the Mets yesterday. I was supposed to do a networking type event in July of 2020 at the Honda Club, and they're hoping that they'll have it. And of course, we could always go to Texas and have events there. You
can,
but of course, I'm going to be vaccinated before then. But I think they have to wear masks. But we can all go to Texas. We'll see about that. Houston, we have to rebook. I got to actually reach out to them because now it's 100% capacity.
Well, let's not hit Houston in August. I hear that's pretty hot.
I think that'll be September. I think Minneapolis we may do in August. We'll see. I know St. Louis said the 10th was available, September 10th. It's always funny with these events. You always got what virus?
Yeah.
I actually know a good friend who's. I don't want to talk politics, but he said the virus is going to end on election day, and whatever, it just didn't work out. That's my politics for the day. But yeah, I mean, the live events were fun. We'll be doing that again really, really soon. Opening day is in a few weeks. The events were always fun. It was always great to meet people. One of the people we met, a good friend of ours, Anna Marie Bride, her husband passed away this past weekend. So my thoughts are out to her. We met him a couple times. Good guy. And it was always, it's always fun in terms of all the, Yeah, Mike, we kept the schedule. Still have the list, the registration list. Only one person is backed out of all the events. And it's not
Hey,
like
Bud,
it's like I'm holding the money, but
in the whole memorial sort of viewpoint, it was a year or two almost that Scott died, and we met him in Kansas City as well.
yeah, Scott was advisor, and that's the funny thing about these local events. You run a big event like Napa or FI 360, you have people around the country. Well, what I always find it fascinating is when you have an event in like this really crazy place, and there'll be advisor from, Scott was advisor from Pennsylvania who happened to be in Kansas City around the same time. It's the first time we met Mike Webb in Denver. He was having an event conference in Denver, and he's like, oh. So it's always funny to run into people who travel to go to one of these local events. Yeah, he passed away like it was a year ago last week. He died right before the Disney event.
Yeah, he called to tell us. Somebody called to tell us he wasn't coming, and like the next thing out of their mouth was because he had passed away. It was like it was a crazy thing. Sad.
It's a crazy thing. That's probably why I'm just going to stay away from doing any more national events. It was just very snake bit. You're trying to have a national event right before a global pandemic starts. You leave on Wednesday because a year ago it was Wednesday night, and the park is closed by Sunday. And I think my kids went to school that Thursday, Friday, and that was the end.
Yeah. No, we drove. So I was afraid of the whole plane thing. I and actually doing it, I had regretted it, but in retrospect, I think it was the right idea to drive down there. So, we left that Friday, right? 2 days, I guess, after the conference, and there was nothing in the stores, right? Like we were down there, and I was talking to my mom, and she was like, there's no toilet paper, right? And this was Thursday. We were at Disney, and the world there is fine, right? Like people worried about snow cones and getting on the next ride, and like where we lived was
it was the
the end
week
of
before.
days.
I looked at the Facebook thing. I always like the memories to see what happened. And it was a year ago. I was at the Costco in Westbury, and there was no paper towels.
Yep.
And with my wife, I always have like 80 paper towels in my house, so that was never an issue. We were never down to the last roll.
That's scary, man. Down to that last row. And you had to, you remember the lines for Costco, right? And they'd limit you to like one of everything. Like you couldn't buy Lysol and hand
Well, you could never find
sanitizer.
Lysol. It was scary. It was just like, I think the whole thing is like, I think this whole year has been like really surreal, and it's funny how businesses survived, at least for most of us.
Yeah.
The 401k plans are still around. Nobody terminated in mass. There wasn't, but for other people, I just went to the dentist. He's not really a dentist. He does like those oral appliances because of the sleep apnea, and their offices were closed for like 3 months.
Sure.
And my regular dentist, she's closed for 3. It's amazing what happened, and hopefully we'll be out of it soon, and hopefully we'll have some of these events again, because they've always been a lot of fun, and meeting people and interacting with people. I mean, Zoom is great, but it has its limitations.
Sure.
And hopefully we'll be back to live events soon. I just probably start tomorrow questioning some stadiums as to what they're going to do or what the plan is, because I do envision that we're still going to be wearing masks for some time, just till we get into this herd immunity. But whatever, it is what it is, as they say. But how you've been dealing with all aspects of a changing environment with COVID for your business? How's it affected it? Has it affected it all? Companies haven't gone out of business. Partial terms, is that a thing?
Partial terms was a thing. We had a couple of them that had some partial terms. The 10% threshold. Early on, there was a lot of furloughing. Like that was a big thing. But thankfully, most of them have come back. Like we have a client, that you're on as well, that This was crazy. So they suspended the safe harbor match, and about a week after it was suspended, formally amended, the whole 9 yards, they changed their mind. They were like, not only are we going to bring it back, but we're going to make up the missed payment, right? So um the plans are good. The head counts are good. A lot of them have actually added head counts. The market's been on fire, right? So I don't know what it was up today, a couple hundred points. Like no one even blinks an eye if it's up 200 or down 200
I just
anymore.
look at Bitcoin. That's,
There
that's my
you go.
latest fascination.
Actually, I learned about Bitcoin last night on Noah. Who's the guy that
Trevor Noah.
replaced
Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah.
Noah.
Yeah. He had a funny bit on that last night. But yeah, no, thankfully, knock on wood, we're pretty much okay. In some instances, some of the plans have gotten, bigger. I think personally the biggest change is, I'm a kindergarten teacher now, right? Like so the kids have been virtual all year, and
the school never brought them back.
the school did. We're just, so my mother-in-law is high risk and in for a penny, in for a
Right.
pound, so to speak, right? So especially at this point, we're seeing it through, I guess, is the long and short of it. But that's fine, right? So trying to do everything, run a business, be a dad, I added kindergarten teacher to the list this year. So I'm looking forward to them going back. As much as I love seeing them all day long, right? It's bonus time. Just for mine and my wife's peace of mind. We need, a couple hours during the day. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to eating out again and getting on a plane and seeing some baseball.
Yeah, I could count on probably two hands how many times I've eaten out, and it's usually with Larry because my wife won't go out, and I usually don't go. If it's not Larry, I'm not going out and eating anywhere.
We went out in October, right? It was the end of October.
Yeah, we were
met
outside. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
outside. But yeah, I'll try to go in next week for St. Patrick's Day. Wear my green Mets jersey and have some corned beef.
Corned beef.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting about the 401k plan business, I think that everybody suggested, there was going to be this whole big crisis and people pulling money out and companies stopping contributions. But I think the problem, not the problem, but a lot of the businesses that folded are people who never had a 401k plan to begin with. How many restaurants and bars failed?
Sure.
There was always a good kosher deli in Brooklyn I always wanted to go to. And of course, anytime I always want to go to a place, they eventually close. I never get to it. They closed. I doubt that they had a 401k plan. Most of these small businesses that were affected, the small mom and pop businesses that couldn't open, let's say in New York, but Target could, and Costco could, and Home Depot could. Those are the ones that failed, and those are the ones that never really had 401k plans to begin with. Sure. And that's why, I don't think it's affected us as much as one thought at the beginning, because the businesses that really failed are people that didn't have retirement plans in the beginning.
Yeah, like there was a whole lot of fear, right? I mean, rightfully so. This is my first pandemic, right? I don't think any of us were around in 20 or 1918, right? So there's no playbook, right? Who knew how this was going to shake out? Thankfully it didn't, right? To your point, it was a lot of the restaurant folks, the gig economy kind of guys, and they really weren't in the 401k space to begin with. Yeah, I hope we learned some lessons. There were some good things, right? I think the bureaucracy showed a little bit more flexibility, right? In the past, I think today the DOL pulled back the ESG stuff that Trump had put in place.
We knew they were going to.
So just I think that's a positive, right? But it's time, guys. Let's get right and let's the world go back to normal and start doing what we love doing again.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I keep on saying this until I'm blue in the face. We're going to see a long-term effect of COVID on the business, both positive and negative. And I think that Zoom is here to stay. I think that virtual events are here to stay. I think less travel. That's why I don't think I'll ever attempt another national event again, just because, I think, Napa, FI360, Schwab Impact, these are people that could draw on the audience. It's going to be harder to ask people to travel, take 2-3 days out of their time, halfway across the country, and expect them to do that. And I think that for enrollment meetings, again, a lot of TPAs are going to realize, why am I sending so-and-so out if I send them to a meeting to another client that's a day or two out of his schedule, or his or her schedule, and what's going to happen. That's just how I feel that long term it's going to be a change that we'll always look upon it and say, oh yeah, that's because of COVID. Remember the days when we had enrollment meetings and it was in person?
Yeah.
Those I think are going to be few and far between, because it works, and we realize what rose to the challenge and what failed. So yeah.
That's gonna, there are a lot of things. I mean, my kids are gonna watch some movie this weekend that should be in the theaters, right? Like Warner Brothers is putting all their releases on HBO Max. So
yeah, I punished myself this week by watching Tom and Jerry.
That's it. That's what
That's
we're
90 minutes of my life I will not get back. So,
no. Yeah. It once they got rid of.
I've seen better film on teeth. That's my favorite Jerry the King Lolo line.
Is he still around?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's still alive.
How's that? Ric Flair, is he still kicking?
He's still kicking. He appears every now and then because his daughter's a big fan. Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it. I appreciate you coming on, and for those who couldn't watch it, we will always have this on YouTube, so you could relive all the great moments.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ari. Thanks for the opportunity. It was good catching up, and see you soon.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks with Jeff Todd. And please sign up for all the other virtual events, and go to that 401ksite.com for further information on the big national event in January. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Ari.